What's up, everybody? It's What the Gym, and I join with Bryer and Jason once again for another live stream. And this time we're ranking or discussing our top 10 bands of British bands. For a second then, I forgot what we're doing. Well, I went blank for a second then. But yeah, we're doing our top 10 British bands. And the rule of this live stream is all the members have to be British. And yeah, I'm looking forward to going ahead and doing this with you guys. It'd be a lot of fun. And they've got both their channels in the description below as well. They're both part of the Viner community. I recommend to subscribe to them both. And we've already got a comment. We've got Mike. Did you see that? Saying hey,
Mike,
well.
Mike is in Liverpool.
Yeah, he's in Liverpool Comic Con.
Doing Comic Con over there.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of his pictures.
Yeah, he has a lot of cool pictures.
I hope he's enjoying himself. But I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah.
Cool.
But before we get started, if people don't know who you are, you can just quickly introduce yourselves and your channels before we get started. So I'll let you go first, Bryer.
Okay, so Bryer C Showcase. I have a CD collection, pretty wide variety of genres I talk about, like rock, metal, pop, R&B. Like, I'm all over the map, so you never know exactly what I'm going to be showing next, but I think that adds to the excitement. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Everything from death metal to Thomas the Tank Engine.
Exactly.
What about you, Jason?
Yeah, my channel is Jason the Old Millennial. I talk about movies and music on my channel. Do a lot of rankings of different things like this, and also do movie reviews of stuff that I've seen over the week on my channel.
Yep, cool. And we've already got another comment from Mike. He's saying that the Beatles suck. He's only joking. He's a and then you guys are not number one, and I really don't know. But he's intrigued to know about your choice, Bryer.
Yeah, I know who Bryer likes, so I think I'm curious. So.
Well, you can get started when you're number 10, Bryer.
All right, already off the cuff. Okay, here we go. So my number 10 is going to be Whitesnake. So, Whitesnake. So to me, Whitesnake are a band I feel like are kind of misrepresented a lot of the times, because when we think of Whitesnake, it's always that, big hairspray, that whole sort of thing. But if you really go back to the early career, it was definitely not like that at all. It was more straightforward, just good old hard rock, very bluesy. So for a long time, I've always known the 80s stuff, but I never really listened to the early stuff until not that long ago. And after listening to all those albums, like, I really have a much bigger respect for the band. So we have, of course, the main guy is David Coverdale. He's the lead vocalist. And funny enough, because he started out as unknown, but then he joined my number 9 favorite band, which gave him a lot of exposure. That's kind of a little foreshadowing, but he joined that band, and once that band kind of fizzled out, he went and formed Whitesnake. And originally they didn't really do much here in the United States. They were more like they mainly did well in the UK, but it wasn't until they released this album, I Slide It In, which came out in 1984, I believe, and that's what they started to get some traction. And then when they finally released this one, the 1987 album, that's when they really blew up. So yeah, I've been a huge Whitesnake fan for a bit now. I mean, David Coverdale, always loved his vocals. One of my favorite male vocalists ever, because again, he has that bluesy range to it, but I like how he goes. He can go high, he can go low. I just like those types of singers that way. And even though the band always goes through many lineup changes, like, even though David Coverdale is the main guy, so whenever there's always a lineup change, you always know he's going to get some great players on them, and he's had many great players throughout the whole band's career. And the last album came out in 2019, I believe, so they're still going strong, I think. So that's my number 10.
Great choice.
I know nothing about Whitesnake, to be honest, Bryer. What?
like you don't know Here I Go Again.
Okay, I was gonna say, what's their big song? Okay,
Yeah, Here I Go Again.
Yeah,
That's their
that
probably
one.
their biggest song.
Okay, I was like, I probably heard of their songs, but I just don't know.
Yeah,
I saw
I didn't know.
Whitesnake.
That's interesting. Okay.
yeah.
I saw Whitesnake in concert this year.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
It was with Europe and Foreigner.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. That's pretty good, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really,
How was-
really
how was-
great show.
Yeah, how did David sounded?
He struggled on a couple of the songs, but
Yeah,
I still
He's
thought he
getting
sounded
older.
very well. Though.
yeah.
He had great musicians with him as well.
Mm.
Is it just him basically now for Whitesnake, or?
Basically, yeah, he's the main. He's basically the only like original singer. But again, he's had many great players in the band, so it doesn't really matter. So who's in it?
Yeah.
So that's good.
He even played with Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, I know.
Really?
I know. The two did an album together. I don't have it, but I want to get that one at some point.
I've heard a couple of songs from it.
Oh, okay.
I've enjoyed it so far.
Cool.
And Mike's subscribing to you, Bryer.
Thank you.
Did you think that?
Wow, I learned something already. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, what's your number 10, Jason?
My number 10 is The Zombies, which was a 60s rock band. I don't really know a lot about them. Just I really love their sound. I love Time of the Season is one of my favorite songs of the 60s. I also love She's Not There and Tell Her No. Some of their bigger hits, I would say. It's funny that they're in the 60s and they didn't really, I don't think they were together that long, it felt like. They did this one album called Odyssey and the Oracle, which is kind of considered the big album. And it's on a lot of big lists of like top albums. Sam St. John had it, I think, in his top 10 favorite albums just recently. And so I hear a lot about that. It's a good album. It's got Time of the Season on there, and it's got some other kind of hidden gems like Karen Block, something I forget now. But yeah, it's funny, they broke up like right after that album. So I don't think they did. And looking on Spotify, I can only find like 2 albums from them from the 60s. They kind of reunited, it looks like, later on and formed again. But I still need to listen to all their music at some point. But I put them on here just based on they have some really good songs that I like from the 60s. So they're in my number 10.
Cool.
Yeah, good choice.
I've never actually heard an album of theirs. But
Yeah.
it's on my list, though. I just not got
same
it yet.
here.
Yeah.
But great choice with that one. I dance to Here We Go Again. One of the few songs the lyrics changed for UK.
That's
And
true.
US versions, yeah. That is.
It was just one. It was just one word they changed. In the
Yeah,
original,
one line.
yeah, it was the original. There was a lyric. The original lyric was like a. The original lyric was like a hobo. I was born to walk alone. But when they re-recorded it, it was changed to like a drifter. I was born to walk alone.
Drifter.
Yeah.
That's right.
because I think hobo was kind of like a not a good politically correct word. Yeah, I think so. And also because I think David kind of wanted to change it because he thought many people thought he was saying like a homo. I was born to walk alone. So I don't know that I think I've read something like that. So
Interesting. I like drifter. That's a good word.
Yeah.
I might still have intrigued with the list because I know 2 massive UK bands probably be on this. He doesn't like the Beatles and Oasis, especially Oasis.
I don't.
Our WR made reviews saying how big killers. My favourite British bands are definitely Unknown and Not Famous.
Okay.
Never heard of him.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know Mike's not a fan of the Beatles, and I was like, how can you not be? You're from England. I feel like that should be an automatic, but I don't know.
Yep, I got a story on that, but we'll get to that later.
I'll get to my number 10. My number 10 is Led Zeppelin.
All right.
Yep.
8 studio albums. However, my favourite album of theirs is the only one I've heard from Led Zeppelin, and that's Led Zeppelin 4. Yeah, right behind Jason there. It's an amazing album, that one. It's got my favourite Led Zeppelin song on it. got Stairway to Heaven. And I think they're quite ahead of the time with their sound as well. They're quite the heavy rock for late 60s and early 70s. I don't think there's anything that sounds quite like them, to be honest. And they've got really brilliant musicians and just a brilliant at writing songs as well. And Robert Plant's got an amazing singing voice. And you've got Jimmy Page with his amazing guitar work as well. It's just a really, really excellent band that I need to dive into more of their stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
Definitely make my list.
Right.
So number 9 now, yeah.
Yep,
Number 9.
Number 9.
All right. So number 9. Well, when it comes to the formation of what we consider heavy metal, there's typically 3 bands that comes to mind. Like Adam suggested, there was Led Zeppelin, but the other band I'm going to mention is this one, Deep Purple.
Okay.
So I kind of foreshadowed it before because actually David Coverdale joined Deep Purple. He came. It was this album he joined on. This is where David Coverdale really got a good exposure because at that point he was unknown. And this is a good album, but really the cream of the crop is this out from this era, what people call the Mark II lineup. You have Ian Gillan on lead vocals, Richie Blackmore on guitar, Roger Glover on bass, Ian Pace on drums, and John Lord on keyboards. And it's, again, great, very ahead of its time. And you have Richie Blackmore, one of my favorite guitar players ever. Like he always do like these crazy improvised solos. Like if you listen to like live recordings, like he always does the solo differently. He never plays it the same way, so you never expect what he's going to be doing. And then Ian Gillan, another one of my favorite vocalists. Again, he definitely really popularized that whole scream, like that metal scream, because he has that very low tone, but when he wants to, he can just belt it out and it just sounds so awesome. So but yeah, and it's kind of similar with Whitesnake. They've gone through many lineup changes, but they're also still going, and even now they still are releasing great albums. Like the latest one I have is this one from 2013 called Now What, and yeah, this is still great stuff. Like at this point, John Lord is not in the band; he passed away, but it still sounds like Deep Purple. So that's going to be my number 9.
Cool. And I've only heard a couple of songs from them.
I only know two Deep Purple songs. So.
Yeah.
The one I know is Space Truckin'.
Oh, that's a good song too.
There's loads of versions of that song.
Yeah.
Because they did Smoke on the Water.
Right.
I've heard of that one as well, yeah.
There's another one I know, but I can't remember the name of it. I think it's on your list, maybe.
Yeah, Child in Time. That's the one.
That's the other one. The lead singer, did he go on to do other bands, or am I crazy?
Ian Gillan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually joined Black Sabbath for a period.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, it was like for one album. And funny story, the reason how he got into Black Sabbath was because he was drinking with the other guys, and they got so drunk. Then the next morning, Ian woke up, and his manager called him like, "Hey, congratulations of joining Black Sabbath," and he was like, "What?" But he went with it. But
he went with it.
Yeah. But he's also he's done other solo stuff. Of course, he did Jesus Christ Superstar.
I was gonna say, I know him from Jesus Christ Superstar. It's really good.
Yeah, but yeah, great. Yeah, he's done good for himself.
Yeah, excellent list. All right, my number 9 is a bit different than yours, Bryer. It is the Hermits.
Okay.
Never heard of them.
Okay, British band from the 60s, kind of late 60s. I want to say they got kind of huge. In fact, there's this moment when the Beatles, of course, were like the top band for a long time, of course, in everywhere. But there's like this one, I don't know, it was around whenever they did the what's it called? They did that really big concert. Chase Stadium.
Shea Stadium, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, Shea, yeah.
They did this big concert, and they interviewed like girls at the concert, and were like, are the Beatles on their way out? and this girl and the girl, and they're asking people like, "What's your favorite band?" And this girl says, "Oh, the Hermits." And so it was like the Hermits were kind of becoming a little bit not bigger than the Beatles, but they were starting to get up there where like people were preferring them over the Beatles. But they were much more of a pop, bubblegum pop band.
Okay.
They're just it's not hard rock at all. It's like the opposite. It's just like very catchy music, pop music. It's really catchy pop music. Really is what they did. But it's just kind of funny. But they had a pretty big following there in the late '60s era. I would say my mom was a huge fan of the Hermits. I would say she preferred them over the Beatles. In fact, I think they really their audience was really like teenage girls were really big on them because they're like, they're cute. They're these young cute British guys, and the Beatles were getting more harder rock, so the Hermits were just more softer, and so I think that the girls really liked the Hermits, and so they were really huge at that point because of that. But they have a lot of great catchy songs. I grew up listening to them because my mom was a huge fan, so it's like just one of those bands. I think I might get made fun of for having them on my list because people are like, Hermits, like they're just bubblegum pop. I don't mind some good bubblegum pop, like the Monkees, is another band I'd probably put that category. Just nice, catchy music. I enjoy that. Maybe nothing too risky, but I don't, that's okay. But yeah, my mom's and dad saw them in concert, in fact, maybe 15, 20 years ago. It's only the lead singer, Peter Noon's the lead singer. And he's pretty much he's the only one that's really still doing the music, I think. So the Hermits is really just Peter Noon going out there and singing Hermit songs. But they saw him in concert, and my mom has a picture of her with him that he has at home. So it's, kind of a cool thing, this person you idolized as a kid, and now you got a picture of as you're like an adult. Anyways, so I think they'd probably be not on a lot of people's list, but I don't know. I still enjoy them. They have a lot, like Mrs. Brown, You Got a Lovely Daughter was a big one. Listen People, there's kind of a Hush All Around the World, Silhouette. They had a lot of big hits anyways, and I still quite enjoy them.
Oh, interesting.
I've only heard one song from them. And I can't remember what it was even called.
Yeah. I didn't know until now.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, if you look up their big hits, they had a lot of big hits during that time period. So,
all right, I'll look into that.
You got Toon Army Steve. His top three are Queen, The Smiths, and some band called the Beatles.
Right.
I think I've heard of the Beatles. Yeah. Great choices there. And we got Sam saying howdy fellas.
Hey, Sam.
Hello.
Right, so I guess I'll get to my number 9 then. So my number 9 for me is the Kinks. And I've only heard one Kinks album, and I only heard it today to get prepared for this live stream. Wow. And it was their debut album from 1964. And they've had quite a lot of studio albums. They've had 24 in total. And my favourite songs from their debut. That's why I decided to check out that album first. And it's got you really got me. That's my favourite Kinks song. And they're very ahead of their time with that song. And I think they're very different in each decade. I'd say they're more heavy rock in the 60s and 70s. I'd say that they do a few more ballads. I really enjoy the band, and I enjoy all the members as well, and I enjoy the songwriting in their stuff. And I've got a compilation album of theirs. It's one of the best compilation albums I've heard.
Okay.
It's a really amazing set of songs. But that's my number 9. It's the Kinks.
Yeah, that's another band I need to get into because I have one album as well. I have Arthur. That's the only one I've heard in full.
I've got quite a few of their albums I need to get to.
Was it like something, the Greenpeace Society or something like that is their big one?
Yeah, I think something like that. I don't remember the title either.
Preservation Society or something.
Yeah, I think that's kind of their big sort of.
And Lola.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's another big one there.
that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Waterloo Sunset, I just heard for the first time like this last year, and I was like, wow, this is a really good song.
Yeah, it's an excellent song.
Mm.
Yeah, that's maybe my favorite now.
It's in my top 3 King songs. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of Celluloid Heroes as well.
Okay.
And we got
Oh.
some saying that the Beatles number 1. Also, we'll have Zombies, Zeppelin, Oasis, The Who, Stones, Kings and Hermits.
Ah,
There
And
you
yeah,
go. You're not alone.
quite a lot of choices there, but they're all great though. And we got someone saying that Waterloo Sunset didn't make number 1. Apparently, if that's crazy, if that's right, it's crazy. That should have been number 1. But
There are many songs that should be number 1.
There were a lot of songs at that time that were amazing. So
Yeah, you really got me. I feel like it was like the big one.
Mhm.
I don't know I bet that charted pretty well, I would think. But
and
think
called
so.
Village Green Preservation Society.
Village Green
Yeah, that was the name of it. Yeah.
And Santa Strangers is killer. Is Strangers a band?
must be.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I've not heard of them.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I haven't heard anything by them. All right, so number 8 now, right?
Yeah.
Number 8.
Okay, number 8. Okay, might be an oddball choice, but they're pretty well known. Going with Joy Division.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember if did I just talk about my video? Yeah, I think I did. Like the one I just did. Did I literally just talk about them?
You had a
No.
Joy Division song on your video this morning that I saw.
That was it. Yeah, so we're back with Joy Division,
And I
so
don't know who they are.
yeah, so Joy Division, they're kind of like a post-punk band. They came out in the late 1970s. So just when the punk movement was just about to kind of die down. Of course, you have bands. Joy Division were one of those bands that kind of took what punk did and kind of started experimenting with different sounds to it, kind of adding more to the punk sound. So Joy Division, they came onto the scene. They only released 2 albums because if you know the history, it's a very sad story because especially when it comes to the lead singer, Ian Curtis. So he had many issues. He suffered from depression. He suffered from epilepsy, and his marriage was falling apart. So that kind of led to him taking his own life at 23, so very young. But he left. But he was the lead singer. He was the lead lyricist, and he was a very good lyricist, very poetic. Like he's not a pop songwriter by no stretch, but he's very poetic. Growing up, he was always into poetry, and so he always put all his emotions into the lyrics. And the songs, they're kind of sad, but you can tell that's how he's expressing how he's feeling, and that's something I've related to. So I forgot my train of thought, but anyhow, so the music is kind of different. If you're not used to the style of production, then you might not like it. But once you get it, it's like this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. Because if I go back like 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have given much thought to Joy Division because I tried getting into them at one point, but it didn't click with me at the time. But last year, like 2021, like I was all about Joy Division because I was listening to any song they had released, any compilations. I bought both the albums. I even watched the movie that was based on them called Control, which is a good movie. Again, another sad film, but it was well acted. The guy who played Ian did really good. But yeah, of course, once Joy Division died down, then the remaining members went on to form the band New Order, which they would do extremely well in the 80s. So yeah, Joy Division, I always gravitate towards them more than New Order, but I still like New Order quite a bit. But Joy Division is for me a really good, one of my favorite UK bands.
I've never heard a song from them.
Yeah, I know you had a song.
Yeah,
Like,
that was Love Will Tear Us Apart is probably their biggest hit. That was like the only song that really got good airplay. But they were more like an underground they were more an underground band. They didn't get well known till after Ian's death. So yeah.
So how many albums did they do? Or
2.
I was gonna say it must not have done very many.
Yeah, they were only performing like the bass player Peter Hook, who was a great bass player, one of my favorite bass players too. But he actually said that they were only a professional band for like a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You said they're post-punk?
Post-punk. So
what's punk? Is punk like Clash?
Yeah, Clash, the
or
Ramones,
the Ramones?
Sex Pistols, like that sort of sound. But
Okay.
post-punk, they kind of add more atmospheric elements to it. Like it's not like your typical punk. Like it's more atmospheric and some stuff like that. Played more with production. It's very unique.
I don't know much about the punk era, I guess.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's not an era I'm not familiar with either.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
But a further New Order, though, I know a couple of their songs.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't know New Order either.
Yeah, their biggest hit, the New Order's biggest, most well-known song is probably Blue Monday.
Blue Monday. Okay.
That was like a big dance song.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm learning a lot from your list, Bryer.
Me too, yeah.
All right. My number 8, pretty big band named Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Probably pretty high on most people's list. I have it at number 8, though. Still a top 10 band for me. Adam has one of their big albums there behind him, Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
Many consider probably I've seen people put it as their probably favorite album of all time. I know Rich had it as his favorite, I believe, when he ranked his 50 favorite albums a couple years ago, I think, when he did that list.
And then he did that song ranking video.
Yeah. A while ago.
Yeah, he did that as well.
But Pink Floyd's not a band that I really grew up on at all. I really knew nothing about. It wasn't until I was in college, I think, that I was like, oh, I should check out Pink Floyd because I keep hearing about them. And I think I checked out like Dark Side of the Moon. And man, what a unique band. I feel like they're just, I can't compare them to anybody else. They have just a really interesting, unique sound to them. I think they started maybe in the 60s, but got really big in the 70s, I want to say.
Yeah.
I know David Gilmour is like the guitar player. I love his solo work, on songs like Comfortably Numb and Another Brick in the Wall. Hey You, I think is one. Yeah, it's got some really good. I love his solos, and I forget the bass player. I know he does a lot. I see him a lot.
Roger Waters, yeah.
Roger Waters, yeah. I see him out there. I'm guessing the lead singer must have died some time ago because I don't think I ever see him. But
their original singer Sid Barrett, he died in 2006, so it's been a bit.
I know they do concerts, but I don't think they're together as a band anymore.
No.
Or something. So something happened. I think I know David Gilmour.
Lots of legal issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Roger Waters goes out there and I think does concerts. Maybe. So, but yeah, I don't know how to describe their sound. It's like, I don't know if it's psychedelic would be the right word.
Like early on, they were kind of psychedelic rock, but then in the 70s, experimental, progressive rock, that sort of.
Yeah, I love they use a lot of studio work, I guess I should say. They use a lot of sound effects. In fact, I would say they probably use too many sound effects. I get a little tired of. I'm like, man, I'm 2 minutes into the song and they haven't sung yet. They do like there's one where they start with clock sounds, I think. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? But it's very interesting. I love their over sound. Like Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall are 2 big ones. I really love Comfortably Numb, maybe my favorite. Another Brick in the Wall I really enjoyed. I remember when I was a kid in high school, I remember I was listening to the radio and Another Brick in the Wall came on and I had no idea who Pink Floyd was or anything. But I just love the line, teacher, leave those kids alone. And I'm driving to school and I'm like, yeah, leave those kids alone. Like I felt like it was an anti-teacher song. I don't know if it was, but I'm like, yeah, anti-teacher.
At least anti-teacher in that time period, yeah.
Anti-authority or something. I'm like,
I'm
a high school kid going, yeah, preach it. Anyway, so But I always love that song, and they have so many great songs and a lot of interesting music. Like I said, I'm not real versed in Pink Floyd. I mostly know Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall are probably the two. I know a lot of people love Wish You Were Here.
Wish You Were Here, yeah.
Which is
that one too.
That's another great song of theirs.
Mhm.
But yeah. So I know if anybody else can probably talk more about Pink Floyd, they might know more. I don't know a lot, but I do enjoy some of their music.
Yep, we'll get to them later.
Okay, good. So maybe
I've still not heard The Wall yet.
you haven't.
That's a classic album I've got here.
Yeah, it's a double album, so it's pretty long.
double album, concept album too.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
love to do concept, don't they? Dark Side of the Moon, Wall,
Dark
both
Side of
are.
the Moon, yeah.
They have some kind of story, I guess, or theme.
Story theme, yeah.
Which I don't really pick up on those kind of things. I just listen to the music and go, "Oh, I like that."
Yeah. Another Brick in the Wall was my first Pink Floyd song I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first for many people, because I think that was probably their biggest hit.
I'd say that's a big radio hit, probably.
Yeah.
I've only heard a couple of their albums.
Time. I'm thinking of too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've only heard them in the last year.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they didn't make it in my top 10, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even though I've got one of their albums behind me.
Yeah, you got me that one. I was like, oh, guy's album.
But it is an amazing album, though.
Mm.
That's why I included it.
Yeah, very unique.
Definitely iconic.
Yeah, in the that album cover, just so iconic. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was saying that Strangers is by the Kinks.
Oh, okay.
It's a Kinks song.
I know there's a band called the Strangers.
Sings it. So I'll have to check that one out. I've never heard that one before.
Mm.
And you two also make Sam's list.
Okay.
They're definitely up there.
Yeah, aren't they Irish?
I didn't consider U2 because they're Irish, I guess, but
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got Atmosphere is Beautiful.
I think that was for the Joy Division.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Got Glenn Calloway from the Basement. Watching, saying, "Hey guys, I'm late." That's
Yeah.
okay, Glenn.
Yeah.
No, not yet. We'll get
Still a long way to go.
Yeah. We'll try and get those as quick as we can. The video probably helped Another Brick in the Wall.
Yeah, the
Sell so
movie.
much too.
Yeah.
I've not actually seen the movie.
I've seen
So
the
once I hear
movie.
the album, I'm probably
It's
going
a
to hear the movie too.
Very trippy.
trippy, yeah.
Oh, you were thinking UK. Yeah, so I don't think U2 would count then. If they're Irish, so.
Yeah.
Mm.
U2 would be my list. Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, Strangers. I'll go check that song out after this.
Mm.
In fact, I'll get it on Spotify ready. Afterwards, see what my number 8 is. And for me, it's Dire Straits.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and they've only had 6 studio albums, and my favorite is Brothers in Arms. And eventually, I will get through all of their all their studio albums. And my favorite song is from Brothers in Arms, and it's Money for Nothing.
Mhm.
I've always loved that song. It's got one of my favorite intros of any song,
Yeah.
and they're really amazing at doing guitar work and just all the instrumentation is incredible. There's really nothing that sounds like them either. I would say, and I think Mark Knopfler's an amazing lyricist too. He might not be the strongest singer, but I still think he's a very good singer though.
Yeah, he's good.
But one of my favorite bands of the '80s, Dire Straits. I think that was when their peak was, but they're excellent in the late '70s as well. There's no other excellent band that I can't wait to hear all the rest of their studio albums.
Yeah, oddly enough, I don't have a Dire Straits album yet. I hope to get one soon.
I know very little about Dire Straits. They have one song that I like, and I'm trying to remember what it is.
Salt in the Swing?
Yes. I really
Yeah.
like the guitar on that song.
one.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I remember playing that on Guitar Hero, and it's a really hard song to play.
Yeah.
Wait when you mention the beat.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll wake you up.
Yeah. Enjoy your sleep, again. So,
It's nap time anyway.
Mhm.
All right, so back to me, right?
Number
Yeah.
seven.
Number seven.
Top seven now.
All right, number
get
seven.
I'll get rid of this
Okay.
banner. Here we go.
All right, so number 7, going with Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden.
Yes, so of course I'm a metalhead, so of course I
Uh-huh.
had to get Iron Maiden up here. So this is probably my favorite album of theirs. I just love the Egyptian themed cover here. They've always had very cool covers. Of course, they have their mascot Eddie in the middle here. He's always on every album cover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he's always doing something. Like Eddie's always doing something crazy on these covers. I think, and the latest one, I'll pull it out real quick. The latest album they released last year, here's him as a samurai. So, he's always doing, always cool. They always have fun with him.
Does he
Iron
come
Maiden.
am I thinking, or
Sorry, what?
does he come out on stage or something?
Yeah,
or?
he does. Yeah,
Okay.
like just I think on tour they have like these giant person on a stilt in a costume come out
Yeah.
at one
I
point.
think I've seen that.
I think I've seen
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's really it looks cool. Wish I would be there. But anyway, back to here. So Iron Maiden, one of the most influential metal bands. They kind of started in the late 70s. They started out more as a punk, somewhat of a punk, but still heavy metal type of band. At that point, they had a different singer, Paul Diano. But after 2 albums, he leaves the band, but then they bring in Bruce Dickinson on lead vocals, and that's kind of where they really went up. So start with Number of Beast, and then everything exploded from there. So again, Iron Maiden, musically, what I love about them, I just love the especially at this point, the twin guitar harmonies between Dave Murray and Adrian Smith. Those two just absolutely do work really well off each other. And you have Steve Harris, who's one of the great metal bass players ever. Like, he's one of the reasons why I have the bass over there. I still can't play. I still can't play this Iron Maiden song because he's all fingers and he's going so fast I can't keep up. So I'm trying to get there, but I'm working towards it. But yeah, and lyrically they also are also really good. They're not like your typical metal band. Well, they'll talk about the typical stuff. Like, they usually talk about wide range of stuff. They take stuff from literature. They take stuff from history. Like one of the most famous songs is they did a whole song about Alexander the Great. They did a whole song about a poem, Raymond the Ancient Mariner, which is a 13-minute epic. Another great song. But yeah, I mean, I can't remember if I already talked about Bruce Dickinson, but again, another one of my favorite vocalists. He has that very operatic, very theatrical voice, which, again, I'm a big fan of that type of singing style. So it works well, especially when he's telling a story. Like, he gets into it, it really sets the mood for the whole song. And another band that's still going strong to this day. They like I just showed their latest album. So yeah, it's still great stuff. And yeah, number 7 is Iron Maiden.
Very cool.
I know nothing about it.
My dad's got one of their albums on vinyl.
Oh, okay, which one?
It's the Seventh Son of the Seventh Son.
Oh yeah, that was the album that's where it really clicked for me.
Yeah, I quite like Iron Maiden stuff. My favorite song is from the album.
Yeah,
it's kind of Playing Madness.
Yeah, that's a good one. And in the music video for that song, you have Graham Chapman from Monty Python in the video.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I love the way that song begins as well.
Wow, these bands I didn't have no idea they were British.
I know, because it's so hard. Because sometimes you hear a band because you don't hear the accent when they sing, so it's kind of hard to tell.
When I think British, of course, I think of the British invasion. I guess is my main the '60s period and into the '70s, and then there's some in the '90s also. But I'm totally oblivious to the '80s era. All right, my number 7 is a band that got big in the '90s called Oasis. Starring the Gallagher brothers, Noel and Liam Gallagher, band, and really made it big with in I think 1995 or so with What's the Story, Morning Glory. Absolutely huge album, sold tons of records. I have it. I don't have it with me to show, but I've done video on it because it's in my top 100 favorite albums. It's like around 39, 40 yet. I did one not too long ago. But yeah, that was a huge album for me because I wasn't listening to 90s music at the time. I also listened to Beatles and 60s stuff and some 70s. And I started listening to the radio, and the song Wonderwall came on the radio. And I was like, man, this song's amazing. Like, I was totally blown away by it. I don't know why. It was just like, I loved the acoustic guitar at the beginning with the vocals. Sound so great together. I love how it begins, and then just a really nice, catchy song. And I was like, man, I don't know who this band is. I got to figure out who this is. And back then, the internet was still pretty young. I don't know if it was as easy to find. We didn't have Google yet. Maybe it was Yahoo or something that we had to look up stuff. And I don't know. Somehow I and it was hard because I was like, I don't know who the band is. How do I figure it out? Somehow I figured out it was Oasis was the band, and they're from Britain or whatever. And this What's the Story, Morning Glory was the album that was out. And of course, I begged my parents to buy it for me for Christmas because I was like 12 years old or something. And they got it for me, and man, I love that album, and still holds up today. This is one of my favorite albums. The one that I've talked about, of course. Don't Look Back in Anger is maybe my favorite song off of there. But Wonderwall, I think people make fun of it because it's overplayed, but I still like Wonderwall. Champagne Supernova is pretty big on the radio. But yeah, there's a lot of, the whole album I think is great. Like every song is really good on there. And so that made me a big Oasis fan because and it was the first CD I ever owned actually. Because we were still buying cassette tapes up to that point. And CDs was like the big thing. And yet I hadn't transferred over to CDs yet. And so What's the Story, Morning Glory was the first time I was like, okay, I'm going to start getting CDs now and start listening to CDs. So it holds a really special place in my heart because it was like the first CD album that I owned and I got, and it was my introduction into current music because I was listening to oldies, and at that point I was like, okay, I'm gonna start listening to what's going on right now in music, and so that kind of started me kind of listening more to that. Except I don't listen to current music anymore. I kind of gone back to, I just listen to oldies now because after a while I'm like, I don't think I like current music anymore, but at the time I was like, oh, this music's pretty good. But yeah, they're part of the what they called alternative rock at the time. I don't know. I just call them a rock band. They're just a really good, solid rock band. Really good guitar work. I think I heard people say the music is loud, but I'm like, I kind of like it. I like the guitars being very loud and being in your face. But Noel Gallagher, the older brother, is a guitarist, and I think he does an excellent job. He writes about every song that on that album, I know, and so excellent songwriter, I thought. And Liam Gallagher, I think, has one of my favorite rock vocalists. I absolutely love his voice. He does such a great job. Both brothers can sing too, so they both can go off. Their next album, Be Here Now, was also, I think, a very good album that also made my top 100 favorite albums list. Not as good as What's the Story, Morning Glory. Still had some great songs on there. I think after that, they kind of went downhill, and then the Gallagher brothers don't get along at all. So they kind of broke up at some point, and they do their own thing. But it's too bad because I was like, man, they're so good together, but they just cannot get along at all. And that's kind of what they're famous for, not getting along. So really, based on those two albums, I really like those two albums. And I wish they could. I've listened to some of the other albums, just not quite at that level, I think. And a lot of people like the first album too. I'm not as big a fan of the first album. But to me, those two albums are really strong. And again, I just have such a special place in my heart for Oasis because they really started me out with current rock music of the 90s. So they're here at number 7 for me.
Awesome. Yeah. We've got a few more things in the comments. We've got Dr. Winston Boogie saying good evening. Good evening, Winston. And Glenn's got this really long comment here. So please keep this list uploaded so I can watch later. Well, yeah, well, don't worry. We'll be keeping this video on Glenn. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
This is number 10, Cream. Number 9, The Who. Number 8, Jethro Tull. Number 7, XTC. 6, Caravan. 5, Yes, 4, The Stones. 3, The Kinks. 2, King Crimson. Number 1, the Fab Four.
Yeah.
Awesome list there.
Yep, good choices there.
It was a mouthful to read all of that.
Yeah, the Kinks.
Yeah, it's great choice there. Definitely.
Adam, whoever said the Kinks.
Yeah. He had it quite a lot higher than I did.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll get to my number 7, which is probably one that you both be surprised with, and that's Radiohead.
Okay,
Okay.
radio.
They're one of my favourite bands from the 90s era of music.
Mhm.
And I've only really heard their stuff recently, and I've only heard 4 albums from them, but all the albums I've heard, I've found them incredible. And I love Tommy York, the lead singer's vocals, some of the best vocals I've heard. They're really, really amazing with their guitar work and bass work. It's just incredible stuff, and it made me appreciate the 90s more. And Radiohead and Oasis both are probably my favourite bands from the 90s.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just love their stuff, and especially the album The Bends. I find that one quite an underrated one. Even though a lot of people find that one incredible too. But yeah, that's my number 7 is Radiohead.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another band I need to get into. I only know Creep. That's all I know.
I know Creep is the one I know.
Their biggest song, yeah.
I think that's the
Yeah.
only radio hit they had.
I
Yeah,
don't even think they sing it live anymore. That one.
yeah, because
Yeah,
I
he
know.
doesn't like to.
Yeah, I know, yeah, yeah. Tom, he doesn't like you.
Because it's like the only good song they have.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna sing it, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Argive, I'm not sure if I pronounce his name right. But he's going with Other One of the Ants, Blur, The Clash, The Cure, Depeche Mode.
Mhm.
I've never heard of Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Don't know anything about it.
Yeah, same here.
Really, Japan. I've only heard of the country Japan.
Yeah.
Not Joy Division, Prefab
Or
Sprout.
Division.
I've never heard of them either. Radiohead, XTC.
XCC, huh?
Yeah,
I've
I
not
hear.
heard
Yeah,
any
that's
of
XCC is
I've not
another
heard of-
band.
I've not heard of any of XTC songs, but I have heard of them though.
Yeah.
I barely know any of those bands, to be honest.
All right, number 6.
Yep, number 6.
Okay, we're keeping to the metal. There's a weird tape on the CD, but anyhow, we're sticking with the metal. Going with Judas Priest.
Judas Priest.
Judas Priest. Okay, another band that's they kind of took what Black Sabbath started, and I think they really put metal. They really were the next evolution to it, because at this point they were kind of pretty big. They were one of the first major bands to have twin guitars. They have 2 lead guitars, Glenn Tipton, KK Downing, and again similar with Iron Maiden, great guitar work between the two of them. But of course they're not as adventurous as an Iron Maiden, because Iron Maiden they kind of would experiment with different stuff. Judas Priest, they kind of keep it a bit more simple, and especially in the late 70s to early 80s, they kind of decided to go full on commercial, which they still did a great job in. And of course, the big thing why I love about Judas Priest is, of course, Rob Halford, the lead singer. Again, he's considered the metal god for a reason, and it's because for that voice. Just he can just do it all. He can sing so low, but then he'll go so high. I think even higher than Ian Gillan can do.
Really?
So, and I love that. It's like I love his stage presence, especially early on. Like they were the first bands to kind of really promote that the all leather, because no metal band were doing that. So Judas Priest kind of popularized leather jackets, leather pants,
black
pants.
leather. Or something.
Yeah, black leather. Like they popularized that whole look. The spike bracelets, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely another band that's still going. I have the latest album, and I heard they're releasing one probably not, maybe next year, maybe the year after. I'm not sure yet, but again, another very influential metal band. So that's my number 6.
Cool.
Yeah. Isn't he kind of crazy, the lead singer, or am I?
He's gay.
Oh, he's gay.
Yeah, but
he's bald, and
he's
wears
bald.
black hair, and there's just something weird about it.
Yeah.
The way he looks, and
Yeah.
It's
I
another band.
I love him though.
It's another band. We don't know any of their stuff.
No, I get mixed up with the Sex Pistols. I forget who does what.
Their biggest, probably the most well-known radio song is "Breaking the Law."
Okay.
You know,
Never heard that one.
Didn't one of them have a song called like F the Queen or something like that? Or
that's the Sex Pistols.
oh, that's Sex Pistols. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking they were like a little too rough for me or something.
Yeah. They weren't very political. Judas Priest weren't that political. They just kept it straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be too rough of music for me, I feel like, but
It's fine. But they were like the band that really got me into metal, because I tried Metallica first, but that was too much for me at that point. But Judas Priest were a good like ease point to get me into it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Don't know much about them. Number 6 for me is a band that got big in the late 90s, I want to say, called Coldplay. Big in the 2000s. Even they have an album that came out this last year, I think, that I saw, called Spears or something like that, that got a Grammy nomination for Best Album, I think. So, but yeah, huge band. They've done very, very well. The lead singer, I think, is really good. I'm trying to think of his name now. Chris
Martin.
Yeah, absolutely love Chris Martin's voice. He's got great vocal work, hits really good high notes. Also love his piano work. It's one of those bands that really they can be led by the piano or led by guitar. They do good on the guitar as well. But some of the songs like Speed of Sound, I want to say, has just a really great rocking piano to it that I just absolutely love. They can do kind of more of somewhat rock, and then they also do really great ballads. Of course, like Fix You is like their big one that makes everybody cry, you know. I personally love The Scientist, is maybe my favorite of theirs. Has just an amazing piano mixed with his vocals. Just very like a haunting song that just really gets in your head. But they had a lot of big hits. Parachutes, I think, was the big album, first big album. Then A Rush to Blood to the Head was a really good album. They both made my top 100. Also, Milo Exloto or something like that is another album that made. So they had 3 albums that made into my top 100. And yeah, just absolutely love their sound overall. And they were pretty huge throughout the 2000s. I'd say starting in the late 90s. I remember first hearing their first big one was like Yellow. I want to say it was like their first big hit, which was so crazy because it starts with an acoustic guitar, and all of a sudden the electric comes in and just like blows you out, and you're like, wow, like that's amazing. They had a song called Trouble off that album that I absolutely loved. More of an acoustic ballad type or piano ballad type song. So yeah, definitely one of my top bands of the last 20 years or so.
Right, cool.
I used to be quite into Coldplay, but I've not heard them really of their stuff lately.
Yeah, I don't think they've been.
Stuff.
Viva La Vida, whatever that song. Oh, that's like that really got in my head. That was on the radio all the time. It had that great drum beat throughout the song. And really catchy. But yeah, that was the last, I feel like, big song they had. But
Number 6.
All right.
Right. It's my go then. Yeah, it's my turn then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stop putting you off.
Yeah, my mum has put me off. Right. Anyway. Right. There's a couple more things I want to say about Radiohead. I forgot to mention what my favorite song of theirs is.
Yeah.
It's Fake Plastic Trees. And one of my teachers I had at college, his favorite band was Radiohead. He introduced me to that song.
Okay.
Well, he introduced
nice.
the whole class to that song, yeah. But I'll listen to that song, The Scientist, you mentioned by Coldplay, Jason. I'll get into that one soon.
Okay.
But my number 6, if I can get to it, there we go, is Lindisfarne.
I don't know that one.
They're from Newcastle, and I live about 20 minutes from there. And they've had 14 studio albums, even though I thought they only had 5. I've only heard 5 of them, and I realised they've got 14.
Wow, that's a lot.
What one thought. And the debut is Nice the Auto-Tune, which came out in 1970, but my favourite is their second album called Fog in the Time from 1971, my favourite year music. And it's a really amazing album. It's folk and rock as well, but more of the folk sort of stuff. And my favourite song of theirs is called Run for Home, and it's from the Back and Forth album from 1977-78. And it's an incredible song. I highly recommend to listen to that one if you've not heard of any Lindisfarne stuff. But Lindisfarne is actually a place where you can go. It's actually an island. That's where they got the name from.
Okay.
And my grandma told me about the band. And she's really into them as well. But when Twitter told me about them, I thought it said Lindisfarne. I was thinking, there's a farm that by someone called Linda. And I realized Lindisfarne.
Yeah.
Does he know Paul?
Maybe.
Does she know?
Yeah.
That was I don't know, that was bad jokes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I get what you mean now. I didn't get that first. But yeah, I really enjoyed that band. I've not heard much of their music lately, but yeah, that's my number 6.
Are they big in England or something that I don't know about? Or
They're not even that big here either. They're
okay.
I think they're a very underrated band.
Yeah. Like what
So
genre are they? Like
Here.
what genre are they?
Right.
They're like folk and rock and a bit country as well.
I said
we
Bryer
got
can back me up. I haven't heard of them. So
Yeah, no, I don't know them either.
okay, so they haven't
I
made it here.
guess you guys have got some homework to do.
Yeah.
I do. I got a lot of homework. Both with music and school.
Probably the piece of record, yeah. It is.
Yeah, that's the
I would
big
say
one.
thanks to Dr. Winston. And so it's got to go, guys, but it's loving the stream.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Hopefully
Thank
you
you.
enjoy it once this stream's being live. But here we are in our top 5 now.
Right,
Number
number 5. Okay, actually,
go.
funny enough, Glenn actually mentioned one of them. So my
Yeah.
number 5 is going to be Yes.
Oh
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah?
Yes.
No.
Yes. So yes. So one of the great progressive rock bands of the early 70s. Funny story how I got into them. So I only first heard probably the most well-known song Roundabout, mainly because of the meme. That to be continued meme. So
Unfortunately, that's how I knew about it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Which funny enough came from an anime originally, so kind of interesting there. But yeah, so that came off of Fragile, and I remember I first heard Fragile, I first heard Roundabout, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I kind of like that because I like the bass, because I really love that bass line by Chris Squire, just one of my all-time favorite bass players. And I went out and got, so my mom, at that time I didn't have money, so I had my mom buy it for me. So she bought Fragile, and I remember, and I only got it just for Roundabout. And once I got it, I only played Roundabout, but didn't really listen to the rest because I was kind of new to progressive music. But it wasn't until I heard this album, Relayer, and that's kind of where it really started. I was like, I think I really like this band, and then from then on, I kind of went back and listened and re-listened to this, and now I like this one. But this is probably their most beloved album, Close to the Edge. There's only 3 songs, and they're all pretty long. Like
only 3 songs.
Yeah, one song's 18 minutes long. The other 2 are like close to 10 minutes long. So
I've never seen an album with that little amount of tracks before. Yeah. Three songs.
How do you fit that on?
So so the title track, Close to the Edge, is side 1, and then the 10-minute songs are side 2.
Side 2.
If you think that's crazy, wait till I tell you about Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. There's only 2 songs.
Oh yeah, I think I have seen that.
Yeah. And they're like 20 minutes a piece. So yeah, that's progressive rock for you.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of bands, like of course progressive rock, also experimental. Like they were kind of pushing rock into more like taking stuff like jazz influence, more classical influence, just bringing it together and making like these big compositions. And if you're into that stuff, then if you're not into that stuff, then it's going to be kind of boring. But for me, I think Yes does a great job of keeping your interest because they have so many distinct parts with great melodies, and of course, all the members are great players. John Anderson, another great vocalist. I already mentioned Chris Squire, great bass player. Steve Howe, great guitarist, and yeah, Yes is definitely deserves to be up there. That definitely helped me get into more experimental music. So they're my number 5.
Okay.
Cool.
I've heard of them, just roundabouts, all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard it playing. I heard it from the meme, and also playing Grand Theft Auto 5 as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I didn't know they were British. I guess that's another one I just don't know about.
No, I thought they were American.
Yeah, I just assumed. But my number 5, going back to the British invasion for me in the '60s, and that is a band called the Hollies. Really great band during the '60s. It had 2 lead singers, one Graham Nash, who went off to form one of my favorite bands, Crosby, Stills and Nash. I'm forgetting the name of the other lead singer, but he's also pretty good as well. They kind of formed the band in school. They were schoolmates who formed the band together as a duo first, and then they got added on to the other members. And it was really because of the Beatles. When they came to America and got to be huge, record companies were signing British bands all over the place because it was like, okay, this is the big thing, British rock bands. Which I always want to ask Adam, like, how come America invented rock and roll and then the British did it better? I don't know how. What is it with you British people? You came along and just knocked it out of the park. But there's all these great British bands that came over, and the Hollies was one of them. Once the Beatles became big, the record company signed them on, and really they did more like they're not more catchy pop music, I would say. But really love their stuff. They kind of got big with songs like "Bus Stop" was really big, and "Carrie Ann," really great song. Like I said, just really fun, catchy music. I really like a song called "On a Carousel." Is like one of my favorite songs. Has some of the best harmonies I've ever heard. Absolutely love that song. It's not a song I was familiar with until recently, and I was like, "This song's amazing!" I absolutely love the harmonies because they do really good because the main 2 singers harmonize really well together, and then even the lead guitar player also can sing, and so they have this really good 3-part harmony on some of their songs that I absolutely love. But they have other songs like Look Through Any Window, I think, really good. Jennifer Eccles, some of that stuff. And they didn't have really a huge album. Like I have one of their albums called The Hollies was on my top 100 favorite albums list, but it kind of just barely made it in there because it doesn't really have any big hits. But I love the overall sound of what they have. And they have a lot of great hits during that time period. Interesting that Graham Nash left the group in 1969, then formed Crosby, Stills and Nash, which was another huge, super group. The Hollies went on to continue playing music, of course, without him, and they went on to do my favorite Holly song, one of my favorite songs of all time. He's Not Heavy, He's My Brother. It's absolutely
amazing. That's the only one I've heard of theirs.
What's
it's
that?
Amazing. It's the only one I've heard of the Hollies.
It's one you've heard?
Yeah, it's one of them I've heard. It's an amazing song, isn't it?
Huge hit. I love that song so much. The vocal work is so good on it. They also did like I forget what it's called. The Air That I Breathe, I think, is their last big hit. It was a really good song.
I forgot they sang that.
Yeah. So they went on and did some pretty good work even without Graham Nash, which is funny because Graham Nash just kind of was kind of like, you weren't supposed to be big after I left, but that was kind of funny. But because I saw a documentary on them one time, and it was a pretty good documentary. And I've read Graham Nash's autobiography as well, which talks a lot about the band. So yeah, really, I don't know if they're underrated, but man, what an excellent band in the '60s into the '70s era. The
So
Hollies.
definitely are quite overlooked now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if they're considered some of the top tier British bands. I don't know, but they had a lot of big hits during the time period. So, and like I said, some of the best harmonies I've heard. I love bands with harmonies. So,
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
So I might listen to more of their stuff at some point then. But my number 5, it's one of the albums I've got behind me. It's a compilation album of what I've got behind me, and it's the Rolling Stones is my number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So there we go. And they've had 30 studio albums. They've had loads of albums.
Man.
The debut came out in 1964. My favourite is one of their earlier ones, and it's Aftermath, which came out in 1966.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very underrated album, that one. But I love the Rolling Stones, mainly with Mick Jagger, and Keith Richards is amazing as well. But I love the way that Mick Jagger just moves around on the stage and the way he sings. There's just nothing like it, really.
Nope. No one's
So
got the moves like Jagger.
Yeah.
All the band members are really great, yeah. And R.I.P. to Charlie Watts as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was an amazing drummer
That's
for it. Yeah. And they've had quite a few different band members over the years, but it's mainly been Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. I think it's been them all the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favourite song from them is from the Aftermath album, and it's Paint It Black. It's one of their biggest ones.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I feel like I just heard that song like on a trailer. It's like a popular song to play movie
I think
trailer.
it was in the Kong Skull Island film.
Was it? Yeah.
I think so.
It's big in the Vietnam War era type films, I think.
But I love the Rolling Stones hits, and they do some of the best just rock songs of all time. And there's quite a lot of songs that definitely have quite a lot of funny lyrics, and some of them are a bit controversial as well.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the lyrics for the most part.
Yeah, they're definitely one of the big ones, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've only really got into them lately. So, yeah. That's my number 5.
All right.
All right. Good one.
Number 4.
Number 4. Okay. Next up, we're going with Genesis. So Genesis are an interesting band because there's really two halves to them. There's this era, there's the 70s era where they were known as progressive rock bands, where you have Peter Gabriel on lead vocals. But then you have the 80s stuff. Here's one of them. You have Phil Collins on lead vocals. So it really depends on which era you grew up in. So if you to people who grew up in the 80s, they have no idea about Peter Gabriel in Genesis.
Yeah.
But then you have people who grew up with the early Peter Gabriel stuff, and then they absolutely despise the 80s stuff.
Really?
Yes. There's like a huge debate between these two halves. And half the time, nobody gets along. But it's an interesting dilemma. But for me, who did not grow up in any of these eras, luckily that gave me a chance to kind of view both sides equally. Yeah. And I love both sides. I love both sides.
You love both sides equally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there between the two sides, or?
Not so much on the Peter Gabriel side because they're more experimental, so didn't have that many big hits. I guess maybe their biggest hit with Peter Gabriel was I Know What I Like, but that was kind of like a minor hit. It wasn't big or anything. But with Phil Collins, they had many hits with Phil Collins.
Really took off.
They were huge.
Okay.
Like
I just know Phil Collins. I don't know Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, I don't know Peter Gabriel's albums either.
Yeah, I have a couple of Peter Gabriel's solo stuff. They're pretty good. But anyhow, so yeah, I love both eras. I don't care which. I don't care. I don't care. It really depends on which mood I'm in. If I want something more adventurous, I'll go here. But if I want something more light, I'll go with here. So to me, there's like no. I have no any preference or anything because I absolutely love them. I have all the studio albums. I did a ranking video on my channel a while ago.
I know you love them.
Yeah, I did. Like that was like the first channel that got big on my channel. That still has I think that still gets views. But anyhow, but yeah, I love Genesis. Just great stuff, great musicianship, regardless of what era it is. They did release another album in the late 90s without Phil Collins or Peter Gabriel, but we don't talk about that one. So, but
really?
regardless, Genesis, that's on my number 4.
Cool.
See, I love Phil Collins. He's one of my favorites, but I don't know much about Genesis.
Yeah, I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was pretty surprised when I found out Phil Collins was in a band because I always knew him as a solo band, as a solo artist.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know about anything he did previously, but it was cool. It was like one more thing. So I've referenced this infomercial a lot on my channel. This infomercial where it was like promoting this compilation CD of all these love songs.
Right.
And both Genesis and Phil Collins appeared on it. And it never clicked that it was the same thing. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's I just want to reference that. Okay.
Like, what's a big hit for Genesis?
They have like tons. They have like Invisible Touch. That was one of their big hits. That's All.
That's All. I think I've heard that.
Yeah. That's all. What else? No Son of Mine. We Can't Dance was another pretty big song.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly the 80s stuff got pretty big.
Yeah, I need to delve more into Genesis because I didn't know that was a big deal until I saw your channel. I was like, oh, people are fans of Genesis. I guess I need to look into them.
Yeah.
I just know nothing about it.
And That's All is the only song that you know. That is all, I guess.
That's all.
That's all.
I don't know.
I know you had Peter Gabriel on your channel earlier, In Your Eyes.
Yes, that's probably my favorite of his solo work.
Yeah, that was a good song from him. My number 4, I think Bryer's a fan of, and that is Queen.
I'm a little bit of a fan, a little bit.
I don't know about Adam. I just know Bryer. He's talked about them.
I've got a Queen album next to me, if that's a clue.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yep, I see it.
I couldn't see it. Okay.
Just blows in the wall.
Right. Okay, I see it now. Yeah. Queen. I mean, yeah, I feel like you gotta have Queen. Like when I was putting up this list, there's 4 bands that I was like, they have to be on just about everybody's list. And maybe they're not, but to me, I'm like, these are the 4 best British bands of all time, and Queen is one of them. What can you say? Freddie Mercury, probably. If you polled, who's the top front man in a band, I mean, Freddie Mercury is number 1 almost every time. I don't know if you did one or Adam did a top 12 frontmen.
I think that was. I think I remember that. It was Adam.
That was Adam, and I don't know. Did you have Freddie Mercury number 1? I can't remember, but
yeah, I did.
Yeah, he's the great. I mean, he's got a really great style. I mean, there's something about his fashion sense that's really unique, and he's just really just fun to watch on stage. Like you mentioned, Mitch Jagger, is one of those. I would also say Freddie Mercury, just really great at moving on stage, and really knows how to get a crowd into a song, and also just great vocal work. He really hit some big notes. He had a really great voice. It was real fun to listen to. And they have very unique, they're I'd say really good rock band. I think Brian May is one of my favorite guitarists. I love his guitar solo work.
One of my favorites too.
Bohemian Rhapsody is so amazing. And what's it called? Oh, the big rock song they have. I can't.
We Will Rock You.
Yeah, We Will Rock You.
Hmm.
Love the guitar. It's like a small guitar solo, but man, it's like one of my favorite guitar solos of all time.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
It's a song that's not that long, but man, it rocks so hard. Like, man, when you hear that bum bum bum, man, like my heart starts going, and like I'm like ready to go. Like, let's go. But yeah, and then Bohemian Rhapsody is one of the greatest songs of all time.
Yeah.
I talked about it with I was on Garrett's SoundLab Studios the other day on Thursday, talking about music soundtracks of our life, and we talked about Bohemian Rhapsody. And like I said, yeah, I remember hearing that on Wayne's World. I was watching the movie Wayne's World as a kid, and they were playing Bohemian Rhapsody in the car, and I never heard that song before. And I'm like, what is this? It's because it's so weird. And it's a funny song too. The lyrics are kind of funny. And it's got like a really nice piano piece to it, and then it's got this whole operatic piece to it. It's like such a crazy song, but I absolutely love that song. It's like definitely like one of my top songs, just because of how unique it is. But yeah, overall, just a really great rock band with great rock guitar, great rock vocals. Definitely to me one of the top British bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, more on them later.
We've got Rich Riffler here saying just got on the door and dropped my top 5 British bands. Awesome, okay, let's go ahead and look at them.
Let's see, Rich.
Number 1, the Beatles, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, the Rolling Stones. 3, Led Zeppelin. 4, the Kinks. I think Glenn had the Kinks at number 4 as well. Or was it? No, I think it was number 3. Number 5, Genesis. 6, Pink Floyd. 7, Police. 8, ELO. 9, Immediate Blues, and 10, Dire Straits.
Yeah.
I think one of the members of the Police is American, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Technically, he is American, but I know he grew up mostly in Europe.
Okay.
But he's technically American.
Yeah, that's why I didn't include the Police. They would have been in my top 10 otherwise. And then the song, the early Jellyfish Support label, mate.
Oh, okay.
Charisma Records. Tony Stratton Smith's Great British Record label. Cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
I should say ELO my list because I'm just now getting into them. Yeah. So they probably make my list next week.
Funny as you could say ELO because that's my number 4.
Oh wow! Timing.
Yeah. The debut came out, I think it was 1970, but not gonna lie, I'm not a big fan of the debut album.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. It's okay.
But when you get to the late 70s stuff, I mean that's incredible music there. The Jeff Lynne's and Melody Genius. I think he always did the melody first and lyrics second. Okay. Quite an unusual way of doing things. But yeah, ELO just incredible. They did really, really incredible doing all sorts of genres with their instruments as well, with violins and electric guitars and amazing vocals. And my favourite song is from the Out of the Blue album, which is my favourite album of theirs. And my favourite song from it is the closing track called The Wild West Hero. It really makes me want to be in the Wild West when I listen to it. But yeah, I just absolutely love ELO and never really get bored listening to that stuff. And I'm always in ELO mood. It's like I think I am with all these top 10s. I think I'm always in the mood for any of these ones in my top 10. But yeah, I absolutely love ELO. The late 70s was their peak, and I'd say the best time period. But some of the 80s stuff is incredible as well, like the album Time. That's an incredible concept album. But yeah, that's really all I'll say about my number 4.
Yeah, I just listened to the album recently. The one you said, what was it, Discovery?
Out of the Blue.
Out of the Blue. Yeah,
what did you think of it?
It has Turn to Stone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Summer and Lightning. These are songs I liked on there. Mr. Blue Sky and Sweet as the Night were the 4 songs I really liked off of that album.
And Sweet Talking Woman is up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love A Whole New Record. Just absolutely amazing. There's so many songs on there I wrote down as my favorites. Yeah, then that album's pretty good as well. They have a really good. I don't know what it is. They kind of start off just almost too much orchestra music, I feel like, and once they figure out this really good combination of orchestra and rock music, it's really good, I think.
And then they moved electric for a bit as well.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm interested. That's the last album I've heard, so I still got some more albums to listen to from them.
And on the Out of the Blue album, it's sort of got its own album within an album with that third side.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Conservative for a rainy day. Oh, before we continue, Rich said he completely forgot about the Who.
Forgot the Who?
Number 5. Everyone else moves down one. Yeah. Dire Straits to be joining runner up like Queen, yes.
The
Animals, Dave Clark, 5, etc. I've not heard of Dave Clark 5.
Yeah.
A number of hits in the 60s.
Yeah, I think I
But
know.
the Animals are definitely up there for me as well.
Yeah, I only know one song by them.
Yeah.
The Animals, or the Dave Clark one.
Yeah, because of the Beatles, all these British bands hit, just like the Animals, the Dave Clark 5, the Hollies, the Rolling Stones. I mean, they all just came flooding in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's an invasion.
That was an invasion.
Definitely was.
That's invasion.
Mm-hmm. Hands down the best invasion.
All right, so we're at number 3, top 3 now.
Top 3.
All right, so Jason talked about this band earlier, and that is Pink Floyd.
Okay, good.
Yes, so Pink Floyd, another one of those early bands I got into early on. Aside from Queen, it was Pink Floyd as well. So again, I'll try to make this quick because again, Jason kind of already talked about them. But yeah, David Gilmour, one of my all-time favorite guitar players ever, just absolutely phenomenal solos. Just the amount of emotion he puts into them. Like even though I guess technically they're simple, but it's just how he plays it that just adds. Yeah, it just adds.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really long or something.
Yeah, like his bends are just
like how he's got his own distinctive style.
Yeah,
exactly. It's very bluesy, but again, it's just how he plays those notes is just gets me chills every time I hear his solo, and just that whole run throughout the 70s, just starting with I guess you can include metal, and then of course Dark Side. Then you have Wish You Were Here, Animals. And then you have my favorite Pink Floyd album, which is The Wall. Yeah, just this one got me through high school, this album here. So I absolutely adore this album. So again, not much else to add, but number 3 is Pink Floyd for me.
Yeah,
cool.
Good.
I feel bad it's not in my top 10. Maybe someday there might be.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're very, I don't know, they're unique. I don't know how to say.
Right.
It's just not the type of music I tend to like to listen to.
Yeah, and in fact, I don't know how their music makes it on the radio because they just have some of their songs are like too long, and they just had. I don't know if they cut them down for radio or how they did that, but
I don't think it'd be the same on radio though. You've got to hear the whole album all the way through.
Yeah. That's the big thing about Pink Floyd. Like their albums are kind of meant to be played from top to bottom. You're not supposed to break them up or anything.
That's very true. It's hard to pick out songs from their album.
Because the radio doesn't mind playing a 45-minute album.
Yeah, that's a great one. I need to listen to some more Pink Floyd. Like I said, I mainly know Dark Side, The Wall are the big ones, but I know they even had some into the 90s, maybe.
A little bit. I think they only released one album in the 90s. The Division Bell, the last one. Yeah. And I like that one up too. That's a pretty good album.
But it didn't have some of the original members, and so it was controversial. Maybe.
It was. They had the 3. They still had David Gilmour. You had Rick Wright and Nick Mason, but you didn't have Roger Waters, and that was kind of where all the legal stuff was.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of talk about that. Like it's not complete without all of them or something. Anyways, but yeah. Number 3 for me, I have them right above me. Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to have them. It's one of the greatest rock bands of all time. I don't know what you consider them, Bryer. Like, to me, they're like hard rock, but I know
Yeah.
there's probably harder rock than Led Zeppelin. But
Yeah, they're definitely one of the pioneers of heavy metal, but I wouldn't call them heavy metal. I would go with hard rock.
I consider them, yeah, hard rock, because I mean, they really took rock to a new level for me. I feel like starting with like Jimi Hendrix and then going to like Led Zeppelin, The Who, like, I don't know, to me, rock music just got like much heavier. And Adam mentioned Led Zeppelin already at number 10, in fact. But yeah, Jimmy Page, probably my second favorite guitarist behind Jimi Hendrix. I think is the greatest guitarist, rock guitar.
And they're both called Jimmy.
Yeah, they're both Jimmy.
And number 3, the third best guitarist, is What the Gym.
What the Gym?
No.
What the Gym? Yeah, Jimmy Page is absolutely amazing. I've heard people. I didn't know this, but there's some kind of controversy that he steals songs from other people or something. I don't know.
We like to say he was inspired by them.
Inspired by them? Which,
yeah, I know that was a big thing, especially with Stairway.
Yeah. Is it?
Yes.
I've heard that whole chord thing. I didn't know that before, but people say that. But I'm like, I don't know. The music is great, so I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, man, their music. I don't know if whatever he did, he's still amazing. I think Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
They're just to me the best at starting off a song with that really great rock riff. I just love the way they start lots of the songs. Like Whole Lot of Love is like one of my favorite rock songs from them, because that bump, I don't know, just the way that guitar hits you. It's just like my heart is just pumping. I'm just like really, like, it really gets me into the mood. Like when I think that's off of Led Zeppelin 2. It's like the first song maybe off of Led Zeppelin 2.
Yeah.
And man, that really gets you in. But the guitar soloing is just absolutely amazing. But everybody's great. I think the bass and the drums. This is one of those bands that when you think of like who's the best rock musicians, they're up there on my list of just every aspect. They're just absolutely amazing on. As Adam mentioned, Stairway to Heaven is my favorite song. Yeah. I mean, because I love how it starts with acoustic and then it hits you with a rock song all of a sudden. Yeah. It's like like a rock song, but it's also very soft. And
it doesn't sound like out of place though.
Yeah, it's a great progression.
Yes, it progresses so great.
Yeah,
that's why it's like the great rock song. That's not all rock, but man, so great. But yeah, Led Zeppelin 4 is my favorite album. There is because Stairway to Heaven's on there. I think it's a break. What's it called? Now I have to look at it.
When the levee breaks.
What's that?
When the levee breaks, is that what you're thinking?
That's one of them, yeah. I don't think I have the list on here. Yeah. I don't know, it's Heartbreaker or something like that. That's
a Heartbreaker. That's I think that's on the I think it's on the second album, I think. Yeah.
One of those. It has such a great guitar solo in there. Black Dog, absolutely amazing riff. Just gets into you. So many amazing songs from them. And I didn't really grow up a big Led Zeppelin fan. I've just kind of recently become more big on Led Zeppelin. Like I said, Led Zeppelin 2 and 4 are like my two favorite albums from theirs. And 4 is definitely like up there as one of my favorite albums. This was the first vinyl I got. When I finally started collecting vinyl this last year, this was the first one I got. And it was a good one to get to start listening to.
That's a good one.
Led Zeppelin 2. Is that Zeppelin 2 in your top 100 favorite albums?
Yeah. Yeah, I talked about that already. 4 is coming up. Okay, here, I finally found it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that must be on Led Zeppelin 2. That's what I was thinking. Heartbreaker. Yeah, that's so good. But Misty Mountain Pop is so good, and I like going to California.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Rock, more acoustic, and I love the acoustic sound.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the best songs on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people love the other Led Zeppelin albums, but those are the ones that really stand out to me. But yeah, have to have Led Zeppelin on here.
Sean Spins would have T-Rex in his.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, T-Rex, Slade even.
Mm.
Could love be today and it rocks. I don't know that one.
Yeah, don't know much Slade.
Yeah, don't know much about.
I just know I know the Christmas song from Slade. My dad said just read the relatives of Count Zeppelin. What the band them for using a family name? I don't know who Count Zeppelin is.
Yeah, I don't get the reference. Sorry.
Led
A real
Zeppelin.
person.
That's such a
I
great
don't
name too. That's one of the great
Yeah.
rock.
Mm-hmm.
Get the lead out, get the Led Zeppelin out. Yeah.
I like the story of how they got the name. Because I think
I don't think I know the story.
if I remember correctly, I've heard different stories, but the one I like the best is kind of when Jimmy Page was telling Keith Moon about the band he's forming, and Keith said something on the lines of, "That's going to go down like a lead balloon." And then he was like, "Oh, that's a good idea."
Well, they formed off of another band, I believe.
Yeah, the Yardbirds.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Page.
Uh-huh.
There's some couple of really good guitarists that I think came out of the Yardbirds.
Yeah, Jeff Beck was part of it. I think Eric Clapton as well.
Eric Clapton. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the great guitarists like come out of Yardbirds, and then they created a Led Zeppelin, I think, out of that. But yeah.
Right, I guess I get to my number 3. In my opinion, they're the most underrated band of all time. And it's one of Richard McCook's favourites as well. And it's the Proclaimers.
Huh.
Oh, okay.
They've had 12 studio albums, and the first one is called This Is Story, and it came out in 1987. Not my favourite album of theirs. It's one of the latest ones, but it came out 4 years ago. It's called Angry Cyclist. It's an amazing album, and it's got my favourite song of theirs from it, called Streets of Edinburgh. And we actually listened to it when we went to Edinburgh as well.
Yeah,
we tried to find some locations that appear in the music video of it. But I really love the Proclaimers and the lyrics are very political, but they're also quite funny and quite heartbreaking, some of the lyrics as well. And I really love the vocals between both brothers, Craig and Charlie Reid. Just really incredible stuff. And I've not checked out the new album yet, but I'm looking forward to checking out that one. But yeah, I love listening to their music, and they've got one of my favorite greatest hits as well.
Okay.
That's my number 3.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And I've always known about their music, but 500 Miles is the song that I always knew.
Yeah, that's the only song I know by them.
I saw them in concert before I heard the new album, and then after I saw them in concert, I was thinking the new album then, and I fell in love with it. It's one of the albums I've heard the most. It's in my top 50 albums. It's an amazing one.
Nice.
I have to look them up.
Yeah. Yeah, the 500 mile song, that song, that was like the only big song they had here in the United States. So
it's a huge song, that one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's even in the top 5 songs by them. It used to be, but I think it's too overplayed now.
Yeah, true. It's a fun song still.
Yeah, I still love it.
Is that the brother?
Classic.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, they're brothers. Yeah, it's 2 brothers. Yeah,
oh, okay.
Brothers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? I'll walk 500 miles just to see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that.
You might have Letter from America as well. You might know that one.
Yeah, it was on a movie called Benny and June with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Where it got kind of big off of that movie, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you made a film with Proclaimers songs in? It's called Sunshine and Leaf.
Okay.
That's a pretty good film. I like it quite a lot. Yeah. Right, well, guess we're on top 2.
Top 2. All right, this might be sacrilege of putting it at this band at number 2, but number 2 is the Beatles. I'm not gonna
I
say,
guess what your number one would be. And number
yeah,
two, yeah.
I'm feeling what
yeah, right. So
I
yeah,
knew that. I knew that 500 miles away.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm not going to say too much because I'm pretty sure my co-hosts here are going to go way more in depth here
Possibly.
pretty soon. But yeah, what cannot be said about the Beatles? One of the most influential band of all time. John, Paul, George, and Ringo, the most iconic lineup to any band ever.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just they started in the early '60s. Started out as a typical kind of your typical rock band, but then what they did as they progressed, like they pushed music, especially popular music, to places they had never gone before, and every band afterwards has been influenced by them. Even some of the bands we're talking about were probably influenced by the Beatles to an
Probably all
extent.
these were.
To an extent. So
Yeah.
yep, I won't say too much, but this is my favorite album by them, Abbey Road. But yeah, that's my number two.
Abbey Road is my favourite album of all time.
Yeah.
It's in the top 50, Jason, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have like every single Beatles album in my top 100. So
Except for Yellow Submarine.
yeah, except for Yellow Submarine. Do you have all the albums, Briar?
I'm getting there. I still need to get a lot of the earlier stuff, but I'm slowly getting all the later stuff.
Yeah. Do you have all of them, Briar or Adam?
He needs to still get Yellow Submarine and Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah.
I also want to get the Beatles Love album as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I still got some to go on my vinyl collection. Yeah, I definitely want to get them all on vinyl at some point. But yeah. Well, good choice, Brian. Questionable at number 2, but I understand. That's but my number 2 is The Who.
Who?
I really go back and forth between The Who and the Led Zeppelin. To me, they're kind of in the same category of just one of the great rock bands of all time. Hard rock. Yeah, I can almost go back and forth between these two bands, The Who and Led Zeppelin, because both have just amazing sound to them. The musicianship is just out of this world. I mean, if you ask me who's the best drummer, I would say Keith Moon's my favorite drummer. Absolutely amazing what he does, and I love the way he looks. He just his facial expressions and he just moves all around, and just the way he moves around the drum kit. And me and my dad always kind of joke about Keith Moon versus what if Ringo was in The Who or something like that, and Ringo just does this, just bobs his head, and it wouldn't work, but.
No.
And Keith Moon wouldn't work with the Beatles either, because I don't know, his style would just.
I mean, their current drummer is Ringo's son, so that's close enough.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Zach Starkey is their current drummer.
Okay.
Cool.
And then if you say who's the best bass player, maybe Paul McCartney would be my number 1 choice, but right behind him would be Entwistle from The Who. His bass work is just absolutely amazing. I mean, My Generation. One of the greatest bass work on a rock song. He does these bass solos. And I'm just of course you play bass, Briar. So
yeah,
I don't know if you
great. Yeah, one of the top bass players ever.
Yeah, so it's man, you got the 2 best musicians right there, and then Townsend's really good guitarist, one of the top guitarists in my opinion.
Yeah.
His guitar work.
He's a really amazing vocalist too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he can sing too. Then the lead singer, Roger Daltrey, I feel like he really came into his own in the 70s. When you listen to his work, it's okay. But then once he gets to Tommy and then Who's Next, his vocal work is just really, really amazing. And he has the best scream of all time and Won't Get Fooled Again. I know Breyer's mentioned that. And
yeah.
on his video.
One of the best screams
just defines rock music, in my opinion.
Yeah. Won't Get Fooled Again is I have to put that my favorite rock song of all time. It's just absolutely amazing. Everything, and just it's one of those things where just every aspect works so well. The guitar, the bass, the drums, the vocal work, just everything about it is like this is like the greatest 4 musicians coming together. Anyways, but yeah, like Who's Next is definitely up there. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. With that and Bob O'Reilly, Behind Blue Eyes, just so many like every song is great on there. Tommy is a very interesting rock opera. It has a lot of good music in it. The story's kind of weird, but I love Pinball Wizard and some of those songs on there. Which a lot of that is Townsend does a lot of the writing actually. So he's, to me, maybe one of the great songwriters that I don't know if people talk about, but because he writes all their big hits. I think he writes. Unlike the Queen, like Queen, I think everybody writes on the Queen. Like the Beatles, shares
and Queen and the Beatles get it's John and Paul mainly.
There's a lot of bands where they kind of share a lot of the writing, I think, but Townsend's really like the genius behind that band, I think. The Who, and I put The Who at number 2 just because Who's Next is so good. I love that album.
It's an incredible album, that one. It's one of the best rock albums of all time.
Exactly, yeah.
It's just a little bit above Led Zeppelin 4 is really great, but Who's Next is just a little bit above. That's why I got The Who just slightly above Led Zeppelin. Both, I think, are some of the great rock bands of the 70s era, whatever.
That's the only Who album I've heard. It's Who's Next, but it's an amazing album though. Yeah,
of course, Quadrophenia I think is big, and Who Are You? I think maybe one of the last ones.
Yeah, that was the last one before Keith's passing.
I know Breyer's going to talk about the Who tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Sound Labs.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you're pretty well versed in their.
Yep. Been this whole week listening to them.
I've got a fact on the Who's Next album cover. It was actually taken about 45 minutes from where I live.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow, cool. That's awesome.
But I don't think you can visit it anymore, though.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It was 50 years ago, so I'm not really sure whether you can go there anymore.
Yeah. Who is number 2?
Well, my number 2 is one that Bryer already mentioned. Well, they both already mentioned. And there we go. It's Queen.
All right, Queen. Bryer hasn't mentioned.
But spoiler alert for Bryer's.
You might mention it here, but
who knows?
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it soon. But yeah, I'll just quickly go through Queen. So if may or may not appear on Bryer's list, he could say more on it if he wants. They've had 15 studio albums. The debut came out in '73, but my favorite album of theirs isn't A Night at the Opera. It's actually The Works.
Okay.
24. Yeah, it's one of my favorite 80s albums.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But my favorite songs from A Night at the Opera, in my opinion, it's the best Queen song, one of the best songs of all time. It's Bohemian Rhapsody, of course. Just an amazing song with so many different parts to it, so many things to dissect in that song. It's a classic for a reason. It will never get old. That song, and Queen are a classic band. They're a classic lineup as well. Freddie Mercury, one of the best the best frontmen, in my opinion, and one of the best vocalists too. Yeah, that's my number 2, Queen.
All right. I would say, yeah.
Yep.
You might hear more of Queen later.
Might.
We'll have to wait and see. But I pretty much spoiled what it is now.
You and Bryer then switched number 1 too, probably then.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep. Cade, this is real life. It's not fantasy. My number 1 is Queen. Of course. So yeah, this was the band that started all for me because before I've got
it. Here we go. I wrote it in before.
Did you just do it right now?
You're ready for it.
I wrote it just before we started the stream.
Man, I'm so predictable. Anyhow, but yeah, I said, this is the band that started for me because prior to Queen, I was kind of like when it comes to music, because I was not really big to any bands or artists. I was just listening to what was, on the what was on the charts at the time, but none of it really clicked for me. But then when I found out about Queen, I was like, what? The first song I heard was Bohemian Rhapsody. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I haven't heard something like this before.
Yeah.
And then, of course, later on, I found out I've heard many of their songs growing up, like "We Will Rock You," "We Are the Champions," even another one, "Bites the Dust," "Don't Stop Me Now." Like all these songs, I've definitely heard growing up at some point, but never really connected the dots. But once I found out, I've discovered Bohemian Rhapsody just before I went to high school. So it was during the summer, and I believe in that one summer I pretty much listened to everything the whole discography in that one summer.
Wow.
Like I was that hooked. And yeah, I tried to look up everything about them, documentaries, interviews. Like I was just trying to learn as much about this band as much as I can. Then the members, again, Freddie Mercury, like we've all have talked about, just one of the absolute greatest singers and frontman in rock music. Just absolutely definitely unique, especially when you see videos of him, just how he works the crowd, especially when he's doing his like improv thing where he sings a line and then has the crowd sing it back. Like just goosebumps there. Then Brian May, probably my favorite guitarist ever. Just he's so unique. Like you hear that tone and he's just, it's him. Like he has that guitar he made with his dad when he was a teenager that just adds to that unique sound of theirs. And Roger Taylor, very underrated drummer, very good for the band, and also a good singer in his own right. Definitely has a very good gravelly type of voice. And even John Deacon, who often gets overlooked. And I know the Weird Al movie.
Did you see Weird Al?
Yeah, the Weird Al kind of poked fun at him.
Why didn't Weird Al go to? I don't know why Weird Al didn't go to Live Aid.
Yeah, I know, right?
Come on,
I know, right?
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Weird Al could have probably stole the show for all we knew. But anyhow, yeah, they did a little joke with John Deacon not being known. But I was like, I'm a John Deacon fan. Like he was the reason why I wanted to be a bass player. So, and he's a good songwriter too. Even though he didn't sing on any song, like he was still a great songwriter. Like he wrote some of the band's biggest hits, like I said, another one, "Bites the Dust," "You're My Best Friend," and
"I Want to Break
Free.
Love that song.
And of course he also wrote "I Want to Break Free," another big hit of theirs. But yeah, all four of them came together and just made some incredible music, even from the 70s to the 80s, and even till Freddie's last days. They were just one unit. Like you took one person out, it was just similar to the Beatles. Like you take one person out, it just wouldn't work. And all four of them did solo stuff, but none of them did any business compared when they were together. So yep, I know it's not surprising, but my number one is Queen.
Well, just in case you didn't go with it, I also have the Beatles as well.
Okay.
Good. At least you're prepared.
You're prepared.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Deacon, because he kind of somewhat disappeared, I thought.
Yeah, after Freddie's death, he was like, I'm done with this. Like, because him and Freddie were pretty close. So once Freddie died, he was kind of like, what's the point now? And so he kind of prefers to be out of the public eye.
He's been out of the spotlight while Brian May's definitely been.
Brian.
I'm guessing maybe as well.
Yeah, Brian and Roger, they're still going with Adam Lambert.
With Adam Lambert, yeah, in the lead. Yeah, so I think that's why Deacon kind of gets this. And
he was the quiet one
as much.
Yeah,
but
and he's also the quiet one in the group, so that also adds to it. But I love John Deacon.
But You're My Best Friend. I love that song. I remember he wrote that, and I was like, that was a good song. Of course, another one, "Bites the Dust," has one of the best bass lines. I think.
It does.
I absolutely love. I don't know if they're making fun of John Deacon or they're just making fun of bassists in general.
I don't know. Maybe both. I don't know.
Because nobody knows the bassist.
It would have been funny. It would have been way funnier if they actually got the guy who played John Deacon in the Queen movie. Like that would make it so they kind of connected there.
Yeah,
that's just me.
But to answer my dad's question, ELO was one number 4.
4, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
you two, go on about the
Easy
Beatles.
mistake,
All right. What's our number one, Adam?
That's your number one, Jason.
It's the Beatles.
Yep.
The Fab Four. Yeah. Well, I'll just say this about the Beatles. No British band has ever made it in America until the Beatles did. Other British artists came to America because you really wanted, no offense to Great Britain, but you really wanted to make it in America if you want to make it. And so everybody wanted to come to America because that's like kind of the big market that you want to get to. Whether it comes to music or movies, you know, we're kind of the entertainment capital, basically. And so everybody was trying to get into America. And for some reason, other British artists just could not make it. They were big in Great Britain or whatever. They come to America and they just would flop or whatever. And so the Beatles coming over, that was just such a huge deal in America to go, wow, here's this British band. First time a British band comes in America and just takes over. I mean, it becomes the biggest band in America. And as a Beatlemania went all over the world, of course, starting with England and all over Europe. And then once they hit America, I mean, they're the greatest band of all time. Once they hit the American market. So that was a really big deal that because in America, you had, you know, Elvis, you had Buddy Holly, you had these more solo artists were really huge here. But that was the first time really a band just really took over, I feel like, a rock band. And that forever changed music. I mean, rock music became the mainstream of music at that time because all the teenagers, that's all they listened to was the rock music. So I feel like there's a big shift in music from the parents to the kids in the 60s, thanks to the Beatles, I think, coming over and just being so huge with especially the teenage girl crowd just went absolutely nuts. And no one had ever seen crowds go crazy. No one's ever seen concerts where the kids were just going crazy, yelling, you know. It was just something never seen before. I mean, and that's where we get the British invasion, like I said, because all of a sudden all these other British bands kind of just took over from the Beatles, and just we had this influx of great British music, rock music that came over, which the British, like I said, the Great Britain people, they got from us because Elvis kind of influenced everybody in Great Britain, and then everybody from Great Britain influenced us. So it was very interesting how that all worked there. Also, I mean, the Beatles, they're only band I know that had like 5 songs in the top 5 at one time, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's
Something
5
like that,
songs. They're all Beatles songs, top 5. Never been done before or ever. I mean, just astronomical how big they were. And you think about, they made basically, you know, 12 or 13 albums in like a 7-year period. And they were all #1 albums. No one's ever done that before. And we'll never ever do that again. I mean, the things they did is just unheard of. And yeah, the greatest rock band of all time, in my opinion.
Yep. Okay. It's one number one. I agree with you. It's the Ruttles. My favorite song of theirs is "I Must Be in Love." It's no, I'm being serious now. Well, there it is. There's my number one.
All right.
The Beatles. Got my favorite songwriter with John Lennon. One of my favorite singers is Paul McCartney. He's probably the best bassist of all time. And George Harrison's one of the best guitarists. And Ringo's probably my favorite drummer, even though he's not the best drummer.
Yeah.
They've all got amazing personalities, and combining all their music knowledge together just create the best band of all time. And they're the band that have got the most songs, a 10 out of 10. I think out of their 200 plus songs, I rate about 100 of them a 10. I love their music that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing my top 100 Beatles songs definitely wasn't an easy task, and I'm always changing it. I feel like.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if Beatles have got 12 or 13 studio albums. Depends if you count the other Submarine, but I do tend to count that one, even though I'm not the biggest fan of that one. But all the rest of the albums I think are great too. Perfect. And Abbey Road is my favourite album of all time. And they really progressed a lot in just 6 years.
Yeah.
Well, it's more, just over. And my favourite songs from Abbey Road, And it's cool and some does carry the weight in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it's probably cheating now with all those 3 songs from my favorite song of all time, but they all go together really, really well. It's like the Beatles' Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Beatles, and they've always been a part of my life. And I've been getting into them since about September 2020. I got into all their discography.
Okay.
Before then, I just knew the songs from the Beatles, the Red Album, which when I was younger, for some reason, I thought they were the only Beatles songs. And I was thinking, where's Penny Lane? Where's Strawberry Fields? They're not on the Red Album.
Oh,
Where
really?
are they? But there's a Blue Album, and I realised they've got a whole 10+ albums to listen to. I couldn't believe it. I never saw that many. And I thought I knew all of them, but I only knew the hits. There was loads of songs I still need to discover. Then listen to the Beatles anthology. I really enjoyed that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And love listening to all the Beatles compilation albums. Just love listening to their music. And I never get tired listening to their stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would say an obvious number one, but I guess maybe it's not that obvious. But
Obvious to us.
Maybe obvious, but I mean, it's
Personal
it's preference.
We're
Yeah.
going for luckiest 4 guys ever. Yeah, that's what my grandma thinks. She thinks they're the luckiest guys ever. Like all the she knows, like Barry Manilow.
Well, yeah, he's good too. I have a greatest hits of his.
Yeah, I like a couple of his songs. My mum said all great choices, guys. No one said wow, her favourite.
It's more of a duo than a band.
My mum loves George Michael.
Okay.
One of her favourites.
Mm.
Interesting.
But we got through our top 10 British bands. We got there.
We had a pretty good variety. I think we all had the Beatles and Queen, or
Yeah.
I think we only did 2.
And then me and you had Pink Floyd. Me and Jason did.
yeah.
Me and Jason had Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
Was I the only one that had the Who?
Yeah, I think you were.
Oh wow, I'm surprised. Okay, so I guess this was more variety than I expected. I thought we'd have some of the same ones, but I forget Bryer knows all these bands in the 80s. I don't know.
Well,
So
before we go, do you guys have any honorable mentions you want to say? I've got a couple.
Yeah, I got a few. The Who, obviously, that's an honorable mention because
Yeah,
I've been listening to a lot in this week. So, but I will say, like after listening to those albums, they've risen up. Like they've probably like maybe somewhere in the top 15. I also, of course, Led Zeppelin. You mentioned that's another one I do really love. Stones, Uriah Heep, kind of a more lesser known hard rock band, but they're very good. ELO. I also have Def Leppard. Def Leppard's another one I grew up. Yeah, that's another one I grew up with. Bad Company, I think. And
I've not heard of that.
Yeah, Bad Company. They're a pretty good band. They have Paul Rogers on lead. He's very good, very good. And I guess would you? I guess Wings too, if we include them.
Linda's American, but
okay.
Yeah,
So doesn't really
I was
count.
doing
Never mind.
If it weren't for that, but yeah.
All right, that's right. And and last one I'll mention the Moody Blues.
Okay.
Here are a couple. The Animals and Oasis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, so you like
number 11 be Oasis and 12 the Animals.
Yeah, I like some of their stuff. I need to venture more into the Animals because the vocalist is so good on that. Eric Burden or whatever.
Eric Burden.
I was going to get you one of their compilations, Jason, but I went with a different album to send you instead.
Okay.
Got a couple more comments here. Mum saying, aren't the Proclaimers a duo at the gym?
We'll let it slide.
Is it twin brothers or?
Yeah, twin brothers. Yeah.
Yeah. You got Brian from Massive Main
Hey, Brian.
Hello, Brian. Well, I really enjoyed doing this live stream with you guys.
I don't have the Rolling Stones. That's the big one I don't have on my list, but I just can't stand Mick Jagger. I don't know. I just don't.
Yeah, it took me a bit to get used to him.
He's got He's got an acquired taste.
Yeah, his voice is very grating on my ears, so I don't know.
It probably will be if you put it full blast.
ELO should be on my list, but I'm just now getting into them, so I'm sure that would be on my list because I'm really enjoying what I'm hearing. And the Kinks were a consideration, I would say.
But personally, I couldn't think of that many British bands then. It just all suddenly came. I could think of loads then.
Yeah.
There's so many I just don't know about now that I hear you guys talking, but
And I appreciate everyone. You put something in the chat, and you can let us know in the comments below what your favourite British bands are. But we won't be offended if you got the Ruffles as number one. Look, do you guys have any final words?
Wham, bam, I am a man. Job on a job, you can tell me that I'm not.
We're still alive.
Oh,
We're still alive.
I didn't know.
that's going down.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
No, thank you a lot, Adam, for having us on. What other country can we hit next?
Yeah, there's not many.
I don't know if I can do any other top 10.
Canada next.
USA.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if Canada has enough for me to do a top 10 or not. But
Big band artists for Canada.
Yeah, we probably have to go like both solo and band.
yeah, probably.
But again, Jason and Bry's channel are both in the description. Go ahead and subscribe to them, please. Yeah. And that's it from us on this live stream. And you can like the live stream if you want, or share it around. It's entirely up to you. But see you guys next video or live stream. And ciao.
Ciao.
Oh, but Dad put Korean troops next.
North
North
Oh.
Korea.
Don't know much K-pop,
We
sadly.
can do K-pop or Jason.
No, but anyway, see you all around. Goodbye.
Bye.
Ciao.